Loved ones. Tonight we're going to have a short discussion about the miracle of Jesus healing the Syrophenician woman's daughter. And in the Bible, there are two miracles that are associated with the women from Syrophoenicia. We know that in 1 Kings chapter 17, Elijah was sent to Zarephath, and a woman of Sidon approached him, and it was during the famine, and she just had enough provisions for just her and her son, and she had just planned to prepare that and die. And Elijah told her to fix him a cake first, and she obeyed. And of course, we know that the miracle that her provisions lasted throughout the famine. The one we're going to discuss tonight comes from Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. And this is Jesus' encounter with her. Mark's account is in Mark chapter 7, verses 24 through 30. Now, the background of this, Jesus had been with his disciples, and his disciples had seen him feed the 5,000. He's walked on water. He's done these miracles. And now he's debating traditions with the Pharisees here in this particular chapter. And so when this is over, Jesus retires to the area of Phoenicia. It says right here in chapter 15, verse 21, then Jesus went out from there and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And, you know, if you're interested in that kind of thing, outside of Jesus as an infant leaving Egypt in Matthew chapter 2, this is the only recorded instance of Jesus leaving the borders of Palestine. So from the recorded record, Jesus' life was spent in a pretty small area. This area of Phoenicia was a very important area. It was a very heathen area. When we look at wealthy people in the New Testament with purple, these were the people that extracted the purple from the snails. And you can see that our English word phonics comes from the name of this country, because these were the people that invented the alphabet. So this was a very, very important historical region. But Jesus went there most likely to rest because of his fame of healing and working with the disciples. And he went there because it's a heathen area and there wouldn't be a lot of Jews there. At this particular time, his ministry was focused specifically on the Jews, as we see here. And then in verse 22, it says, behold, a woman of Canaan came from that region and cried out to him, saying, have mercy on me, O son of David. My daughter is severely demon-possessed. So this is a woman who, from Canaan, or basically this woman is a Gentile of the Syrophenician race. And she comes to Jesus and she addresses him, O son of David. So she, even though she's a Gentile, she understands who Jesus was. And the use of her expression shows that she had conviction in the way that Jesus was the Messiah. But in verse 23, Jesus does something very curious here. He answers her not a word. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, send her away, for she cries out after us. So this is interesting that Jesus doesn't answer her, but the disciples who had seen Jesus do all these miraculous things are more upset about this foreigner pestering them, and they just want Jesus to send her away. But he answered and said, I was not sent to the lost sheep, except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, which means I was sent to help Israel first. And this, of course, probably pleased his disciples. But then she came and worshiped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. And so he's basically almost comparing this woman to a dog. And we understand that that's not a compliment. Today, we're all animal lovers and we love furry creatures and things like this. But dogs in this world were scavengers, and they weren't really thought of, and that was a common insult. But Jesus is using a derivative of the word dogs here, and it's translated in most English Bibles as little dog. And so Jesus is talking about small puppies, small dogs that sometimes were in the houses of people to scavenge things that dropped from the table. And so he tells her it's not good to take the children's bread and throw it away to the little dogs. And there's even more symbolism. He's showing his disciples a lesson here. And she said, "True, Lord, even the little dogs eat at the crumbs which fall from the master's table." So even though, saying that she understood that even though she wasn't worthy, she wasn't an Israelite, she wasn't a Jew, she was willing to be the little dog to take the scraps from the table in order to get her daughter healed. So she showed great faith and great humility. And that was also the third time. And remember, Jesus had just got through finished dealing with the scribes and the Pharisees, but this is the third time this Gentile woman addressed him as Lord. Then Jesus answered and said to her, "O woman, great is your faith. Let it be to you that you desire." So I just want to make a few quick points and then we'll be finished. So this woman came under great difficulty. She had to go to Jesus herself. And she was a Gentile, not one of the covenant people. So she went through a lot of personal grief and conviction in order to get to Jesus. She didn't give up and turn away like a lot of us do today. She exercised great faith. She called him Lord 3 times. And even when his response was negative, remember, he didn't answer her, she found encouragement in his words, and she found a blessing in her faith. So even with all she was dealing with, even with Jesus' answer, even with Jesus telling her it's not good even for dogs to eat the scraps, that it's not good to take food away from children and leave it for the dogs, she found something good in that. She humbled herself. She did not mind taking the place of dogs. She didn't get insulted and she didn't get huffed at Jesus' words to her. She fell at the feet of Jesus. Even though she was a Gentile, she worshiped Jesus. So as we extend the Savior's invitation tonight, let us challenge ourselves with these thoughts. Let us challenge what we would go through for salvation. Let us challenge the type of thinking that we would think that what would get into our faith. If you're not of faith, what's getting in your way of salvation? We baptized a young lady the other night. She was happy. She wanted to be saved. She didn't allow all the things and the trappings of this world to forbid water from her. Are we like that? Are we letting those kinds of worldly things and worldly obstacles get in the way of our salvation? And those of us here tonight who are Christians, who are members of the Lord's church, are we letting the trials of the world, the difficulties that come into our ways, are we preventing that from getting us into the love of Christ? So as we think about this great miracle of the Syrophenician woman, let us think about what she did, her humility, her faith, and her love, even though she wasn't even one of the chosen people. And she wasn't even asking for something for herself. She was coming on behalf of someone else, her daughter. So let's challenge ourselves with that. Whatever you need, whether it's baptism, whether it's prayers of the righteous, let's make that known as together we stand and sing the song of invitation.